Hey there, fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. My name is Caleb Pearson. I'm your host for today. Joining me, two dear friends of mine, brothers in Christ. I'll come your way first. Hunter Mayo, pastor of Family Life. Hunter, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Caleb.
This is the first podcast we're on together.
I guess it is. You sure about that?
No, I'm not, but it feels that way, and I'm excited, so thank you for being here. Over to my right, your left, is the pastor of kids ministry, Brian Weir. B-dubs, how are you? Good. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having us.
So we're excited to take this opportunity to talk with you guys, just the broader congregation body life here at Fellowship Bible Church, to discuss a little bit about our hopes, our ambitions for family ministry. What does it look like for our teens, for our kids, young people, as we seek to partner with parents in the discipleship of our children here at FBC. So Hunter, I want to come your way first, just to share some big picture vision for your role here, our role together, and what we hope to accomplish moving forward.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just that whole partnering with parents. It's a phrase that we've thrown around for years, and we want to unpack it a bit in this discussion because it really is kind of the pillar of everything that we do in relation to family ministry. All that we're doing is a partnership with the parents. Why do we say that? Because the parents are the primary disciple makers. Mm-hmm. So everything we want to do wants to be serving that end, right? And so I think it goes back to Psalm 78, and I'm just going to read a verse or two there. Psalm 78:4 says, "We will not hide them being kind of the things that the Lord has done, from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done." And so that in essence is what we as parents are doing. We're passing it on. It goes on to say that you're actually going to pass it on to the children of your children, so your grandchildren and beyond. So partnering with parents is the idea that, hey, you're carrying the faith. And we have this phrase now that we're coining, well, we didn't coin it, but we're using, called passing the torch. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that the faith goes from one generation to another. And so we want to emphasize this whole concept of torch passing, faith passing, declaring the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. And so that's something we want to unpack a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So Brian, share a little bit about your scope, kids you work with, age range. I'll do the same, and then we can kind of unpack how we're hoping to pass the torch.
Yeah, so in kids ministry, it's 6th grade all the way down to birth, or birth up to 6, however you want to look at it. And I think we do a pretty good job with volunteers that love kids and love the Lord, and we spend about an hour a week with these kids. And so we know that parents are the primary disciple makers, and we want to partner with them, like you said. But I think one of the things we're going to get in today is this passing torch idea, is that it's hard to partner with someone if you're not spending time with them. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, it's great that we have a kids ministry that's good age-specific teaching for those kids, but we have almost like sometimes this drop-off mentality,
Sure.
The adults go upstairs, the kids go downstairs, we do two separate things. And so I think we're looking to have more opportunities where we're doing this stuff together, where we're walking together with the parents hand in hand. And it's not just we're sending you an email or we're, giving you a take-home paper. We're literally going to be in the room with you and your kids and kind of walk together.
Right. And as I work with 7th through 12th grade and really even graduates as well, I have found it's easy to make a lot of assumptions about parents or what they're learning at the home, what they're teaching, and then maybe it's easy for them to make assumptions about us. But how are those hopes and expectations being communicated? How are they hopefully aligned in a way that we are reinforcing what each other want, so that these young minds see the connecting between those things? Ecclesiology, right? The value of the local church, and what does it mean to actually come together in a way that you get to hand off a roster of kids every year to me, and I get to see them graduate, enter into adulthood, and we're a part of that pipeline. And we know statistics are sobering of how many of these kids leave and feel like their faith is their own. Are they going to take that step into college or the workforce and believe it's their faith and not just their parents? And so that's kind of our hope. Another thing that reinforces that is FBC does a very good job communicating to young people that they're not the future church, they're the present church. There are opportunities to grow, connect, and serve, even as a young person here. I'm appreciative of the emphasis we have on teenagers attending worship with their families, on inviting kids into the worship experience. And it's cool to see even all the announcements and things we provide as a church. They do apply to young people. And so the more we see that and hope for it, we are kind of boots on the ground. Certainly our volunteers are, for allowing that to happen, hopefully more naturally over time. And that's where the passing the torch opportunities will come into play. So I don't know if you want to share what we plan to do, what we hope to do moving forward, and kind of invite the parents into that process.
Yeah, sure. I'll just kind of add on to what I said at the beginning there. Mark DeVries wrote this book he called Family-Based Youth Ministry. And in the book, he talks about a lot of things, but one of the things he talks about is what he called the non-parent connection. And so he said that for youth ministry to really work, and he defined it working well as, hey, we graduate these students, they go out into the world, and they're still walking with the Lord some number of years later. And he said, if we call that a success, if you will, he talks about this non-parent connection. And so he says that the church needs to act like the church such that there are other adults that hang out with our teenagers, and the teenagers have this web of connection, I think is what he refers to it as. But the idea is that you've got kind of spiritual aunts and uncles, if you will, that you're having conversations, life conversations with. And so one of the ways that we can do that, and this is not the primary reason we're doing these passing the torch events, but it is a secondary outcome, is that we're going to put parents and students in a table with other parents and students of the same gender generally. And what happens is you start to have conversations and you realize, hey, that dad over there, they say things like my dad says. And I see my dad talking with another dad, and I see, he has real life experiences too. And so it just becomes more natural, more real. They're kind of folded into normal conversations. And so we want to be a catalyst. We want to be a catalyst for conversations, parent to dad, parent to another dad, or I'm saying dads, but you know what I mean,
Sure.
moms too. The context is, how do we help those conversations occur so that real spiritual conversations and language, not just language, but, real life, how does it happen? How can we start to have it happen more regularly?
And I think that's where you can see the fruit in a family, in the sense that we can reinforce some of the things you maybe have been trying to do or praying for. I've had a lot of interactions even over the last couple of months where parents will kind of laughingly tell me, I've been trying to tell my kid to do this one thing or give them this specific advice for years. Apparently you told them to do the same thing. They came home and wanted to do it. It's like, I'm your dad. I've been telling you that for you. But, well, yeah, but you're my dad. They have this eye roll culture. They take their older mentor relationships for granted. We probably all do, but young kids especially. You get them when they're just learning how a classroom works and how to respect authority. Sure. And then I get them and I see where they're at, and those spiritual ages, so to speak, emerge. But it's to that point. We want to be a part of what you're doing, and opportunities to do that will be coming up in the years to come here at FBC. So I don't know how much we want to divulge about that or brainstorm or share what we will be doing. We're in a ministry planning process here at FBC for the next year, but we want you guys to know the vision behind that. And I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Well, I mean, I'll go back to you guys, because we've already had this father-son, mother-daughter night, which was kind of the first one of these Pass the Torch events. And we're about to have this one for 5th and 6th graders coming up. So you guys have been there. You've done that. Mm-hmm. Maybe elaborate a little bit more on what those were like and what you accomplished, and then we can talk about what the future ones look like.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, and I was a part of the father-son one, sort of helped plan the mother-daughter, but obviously really didn't attend, obviously. But when you are in a room and every single person wants to be there, that's a powerful thing. And that's not something that weekly youth group gets. And you know that as well with Club 56, or even Sunday morning. You can sometimes pick a pocket of people where like, you don't want to be here. So when we do these kinds of things and advertise it and explain what we'll be covering, you tend to scratch an itch before you've even started. And that allows us to dig deeper together. It allows us, especially gender split, opportunities to dive deeper on topics that, for all we know, some dads might shy away from, or some dads might not shy away from, but be super frustrated at the lack of progress in them. It's amazing when, to your point and the author's point, when somebody they're not blood related to starts talking about these things, their ears chirp up. Wait, what? That's not just something my dad thinks about and cares about. It's something other people do. And the dad will sit there and say, yes. But for the student, they might be connecting those dots for the first time. So I've seen the fruit of that. That event, the mother-daughter event, went well as well, I've heard. And so it's hopefully, though, those aren't one-offs. It's not about events. It's about opportunities, and to build a culture where instead of the FBC body asking themselves, why would I go to that? My personal prayer is 1.5 years from now, 2 years from now, the question is, why wouldn't I go to that? That is something that is of value to our staff, to our teens, and hopefully more testimonies and word of mouth invites can come from that. And so now all eyes kind of look to your event and the opportunity to really end the year with parents.
Right. And so the difference between the one we're having for 5th and 6th graders is that we will have no gender separation.
Mhm,
We're going to
mhm.
have hopefully moms and dads there with
Yep.
whether they have a daughter or son, to get as many parents and kids in the room
Yep.
and start to dive into these things. I mean, you mentioned earlier, as kids graduate from high school, owning their faith.
Mhm.
Well, we're starting that process in 5th and 6th grade, right? We
Mhm.
want these kids as their brains are developing, becoming more
Right.
concrete, as becoming teenagers, that it's not just I do this because my parents make me or
Mhm.
because my parents told me, but now they're starting to question these things and making their faith their own. So we
Yep.
want to start that at 10, 11, 12 years old, not wait till they're 17,
Mhm.
18, or 19. But like Hunter, this was, I'll say, your idea, right? I mean, you were the one that kind of came in and championed this idea of parents and kids being in the same room together. So you want to share a little bit more about your heart behind that?
Yeah, I can't take credit for the idea. I think it's something that we tried a number of years ago, or we were doing a number of years ago, pre-COVID. It's kind of funny when I came on staff, one of the first things that I asked Amber to help me with was, hey, look at all the things we've done the last 20 years. And so she took inventory and I was kind of looking through them and I remembered some of the things and to some I had almost forgotten them, but you
And
look
just
at all
so
that.
just so we're clear, it was a list of like 85 things.
Yeah, it was a lot
We've
of things.
done a
over
lot
there.
of different things.
It was not just students and youth, or it was also
Church-wide.
church-wide stuff.
Right.
So we were looking at that, and I'm going to take this little stink bug right here
It
and
was over
just
here.
knock him over. Anyway, so looking back at that, and I said, okay, look, some of these things, I don't know how they disappeared or why they disappeared, and nobody really knew why they disappeared. So it was like, hey, let's bring them back. And the whole idea is that sometimes we can all drive in the van or the SUV, come to church, we can go our separate ways when we walk through the door, and we forget that this place, this building, this church building is really a place where we can be a family together and worship together. And so I was trying to look for ways at which we can do more of that.
Yeah.
How can we get intergenerational meetings or places and spaces where we can have those kinds of conversations? And I just talked to a mom the other day and she was reflecting on the mother-daughter. And she said her daughter doesn't normally come to youth group, but they came to the mother-daughter, and she said it was really fruitful. They had some great conversations. They met other families, and then she said we had conversations that went beyond the evening. So in other words, the topics that were discussed on the car ride home or the next day. And so that's what we want to have happen. We want to be that catalyst so those conversations can occur. Because hey, the faith needs to be passed on, and sometimes parents just need a catalyst to start the conversation, to get things going.
And that's what we're trying to discern and shepherd through. If we were to do something like this too often, they could get watered down or rushed or not be handled well. But if we do them too rarely, which I think arguably has been the case over the last couple of years, we miss that entire vision and opportunity. There's also a layer of fruit to this kind of focus that not many people think about. It's not just inviting you guys into our context so that your family can learn from us. From a personal standpoint, I want to learn from your family. We are shepherding these teens, and I can make assumptions all day long about their home life or the dynamic, but to hear from you as a parent or to give us a catalyst for conversation, even our biblical training center classes on Sunday mornings are increasing their value of Socratic discussion, engaging in one another. And so these events hopefully will do that for us. It's not to lecture. It's not just a Bible study. It's more than that. It's living biblically. And so we're really excited at the opportunities we've already had, but over time, again, hopefully that excitement grows and the fruit of it. I'm already praying through which of these students could come back and share at something like this, and that's exciting to think about.
Can we unpack the title, Pass the Torch?
Yeah.
Like maybe help us understand why, or let the viewers understand why that phrase, why this term, what does it even mean?
I think that phrase came from some discussions that happened several years ago, I think. So if you go by the fireside place here, you're going to see some things on the wall. And I don't know, there's a leadership retreat maybe, and they came up with phrases, 5 Ps, and passing the torch was one of them. And so at that point, I don't know how much we broadcast that to the congregation.
Sure.
And I can remember at the outdoor gathering, though, we all got a little bookmark with the 5 Ps. So we liked the phrase. And so we were like, okay, let's use that phrase and let's give it some more context. Let's give it some more
an outlet.
And so that's kind of why we labeled it that. But the whole idea is we want parents to recognize that they are the torch passers. And we want the kids to realize, hey, they are the next generation. They are the church now, but they're going to be leading families in just a decade or so, maybe after they leave us. So we want to equip them well. We want the parents to equip them well. We want to help them equip them well.
And Parents tend to have two options when it comes to their kids. They're going to do it proactively or reactively.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot of stories, and I see it firsthand. A lot of times there might be a lot of reactive decisions being made here, but to instill a biblical foundation for what they will face is an excellent way to pass a torch, because the question begs to be asked, what is the torch? Well, here at FBC, it's the core values. How is that person going to love God, love truth, love the family, the church, and the world? Are they themselves being biblically dependent? We don't want to set the bar as, is their household. That bar is too low if their household's biblically dependent, because these kids are growing and we're seeing that in real time. And so how can that happen? And in practice, it's really not a torch, it's a baton. And if you've ever watched a relay race, both parties need to start running in order for that handoff to be effective. And I think you think about that funnel of growing a child all the way up till they're 18, those conversations should escalate and spiritual things should be brought up so that we see them taking ownership. And that is really invigorating and exciting to me when I have juniors and seniors who at first glance, it might be like pulling teeth to get them to still come to youth group, because now they can drive wherever. It's a tale as old as time. You tell your parents you're going to youth group, you tell me you're not going to be there, and then you go to Sheets. I've seen it for decades. I did it. But what excites me is multiple times this year, a junior or senior has driven themselves to church and their parents don't come. So the household isn't being biblically dependent necessarily, but the child might be. That is a very encouraging thing in the life of the teen, even though it might be a cause for concern in the broader family life. But again, we make assumptions. So how can we partner together, partner with parents? It's a two-way street, and you and I have seen that.
I want to build on that imagery that you used of this relay race, right? You said they both parties have to be running, but there's also a point where they're both holding on to the baton.
At the same time.
Right. But at some point, somebody has to let go and the other has to
Yeah.
go, right? And so, I just launched a child to college. And so
Yep.
we're in that process where you have to eventually let go.
So
You're
you
always
know,
going to be a parent.
you just sent a daughter to college.
Yeah.
So you know what it's like to still be holding the baton.
Yeah.
And she knows what it's like to try to yank that thing from
Very
you.
much so.
And you and your wife are discerning, okay, Lord,
Right.
how do we do this faithfully? Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's all part of this, right? We want to make sure those batons get passed well, not
Yeah.
dropped on the ground.
Yeah. And here's another thing that I see, because I try to stay in touch with graduates, and there's young adult ministry, there's opportunities to stay connected. How do they value their parents once they're out of the home? Because that relationship arguably becomes more important as mentor, as brother and sister in Christ, even potentially as friend. And you'd be surprised how many kids feel like they're under the gun for 18 years, and then they leave and they devalue where they came from, and they don't seek counsel from their primary counselor in their life. But alternatively, as we wrestle with that balance, even shepherding youth group, I have to wrestle with the balance of independence versus dependence. To what degree am I about to trust this child with that task? My boys will get there, and I'll have to wrestle with it full time as a parent. But in the meantime, how can, again, their faith be made personal so that they don't just know what the torch is, but they buy into this idea and they see that matters, that makes sense. Those statistics are helpful, and sometimes they can look at somebody older than them. I'm very grateful for a lot of new youth volunteers over the last year, many of them younger. So it's not just a parent with kids and youth, but it's actually a young person who's 28 going, I know what it's like to neglect the church. And now they get to speak into the lives of teens, hopefully, so they don't do the same thing.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think we need more of that, right? So we
Yeah.
need the whole church to be the church. And that means that all of us together rubbing shoulders, because let's face it, like you said earlier, there are many dads, moms who are church attendees here who have learned so many rich things about the Lord. And I would love for them to have an opportunity to share some of those rich things that they've learned with my kids. And so we can provide those places and spaces. Yeah, my kid can hear truth about the love of the Lord and the grace that the Lord has poured out onto that dad or mom, and really see something that I couldn't have given them. But that's the church being the church. And that's those spiritual aunts and uncles that they need to hear from.
And when those things happen, they're not just accidental. That's
Right.
by design. That's how God works. That's how he's chosen to work and how his spirit works. And so for your son or your daughter that might be wrestling, what if the encouragement they need is from the testimony of somebody else, not in the home? If I have a guest speaker at a youth night, they are listening so well. I'm almost offended because they're used to certain voices in their life. But when there's a variety of voices saying the same thing, that truth, that concrete becomes hardened because they're not assuming, well, that's just what you think.
Right.
The more people say it, the more students start to realize maybe is how God thinks, because look at all these people doing this.
Yeah.
And when we're bought into the same vision, your home, our church, these kids, it can really do some pretty cool things.
Yeah, I think it's also important to interject something worth talking about here, that our enemy has different tools in his tool chest, and some of those tools are isolation and independence. In the Western mind, independence is such a high value, and isolation is kind of just happens from that. But look, the church wants to fight against isolation and independence. If your family is very isolated, you're prone to all sorts of lies and traps. But when you're in a community of believers, you're surrounded by other believers who love you and care for you. Together, you can encourage each other in the faith. Like, that is the design of the church. And so isolation and independence, you don't want that for yourself, your family. Don't feed into that, because that's just a risky thing. Be a part of the community here.
So I think, as far as next steps and the purpose for why we're here talking now, I think the call is twofold. First, we'd love to ask you to pray. Pray for this effort. Pray for what we're doing. We're working with children who don't believe they need community because they have social media. We're working with teens and kids who have a device in their pocket that makes them believe they can do it alone. And we're dealing with households that are up against all sorts of things, including that. So pray for these efforts, for these endeavors, for these kids, for hearts and minds to be open to that. And then the second thing I'd say is, don't just pray, but we'd ask you to participate. Find ways to participate. There's opportunities to serve in both our ministries. I've never seen him say no to a volunteer. I won't either. There are opportunities for us to do that. And if you are raising children, when these opportunities come up over the coming years, come to them and maybe be the change you want to see, or you will get out of it what you put into it. And if we both do that, I think it can be a really, really fruitful time. So I don't know if you guys want to add anything else to that, but
No, I think we've covered a lot of stuff for everyone to
yeah,
chew on, and look forward to what's going to come of this.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is the participation part. Keep an eye out for all the marketing channels that we use and the announcements, because you'll see things that are going to be coming in the coming months. We'll right on the heels of May 6th here, where we do the 5th and 6th graders that Brian already alluded to. But then in the fall, there could be a number of things. So keep your eyes out and ears out and look for those types of events.
very cool. Brian, thank you for being here.
Thank you for
Appreciate it, brother. Hunter, thank you.
Thanks.
It was
for
a
having me.
pleasure. Thank you guys, our listeners, viewers, for watching and listening. Until we chat again, let Christ be the focus of your life each and every day.